Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Geraghty.
And welcome, everyone, to the Monday edition of the Three Martini Lunch, along with Jim Geraghty of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. We have good, bad, and crazy martinis for conservatives today, all of it brought to you by ExpressVPN. Take back your internet privacy today and get 3 months protection free at expressvpn.com/martini. Much more on that a little bit later in the podcast. And Jim, we have a good martini that's not just for conservatives. It should be for the entire planet. So far, after 2 days of ridiculously complex Navy SEAL type diving rescues, 8 of the 12 young Thai soccer players have been extracted from that cave where they've been for, I believe, longer than 2 weeks now. They've suspended operations for the day. They got 4 out yesterday, 4 out today. There are 4 remaining down there, as well as the coach. And these divers are going through painstaking operations to go through all the nooks and crannies of these underground passageways, some of them very narrow, some of them very sharp. We've seen these ex-Navy SEALs, ex-rescue divers on American media saying, I can't even imagine trying to design something this complex. They've basically got to teach the kids how to use scuba gear in order to breathe correctly to get all the way out of there because it takes a while. But nonetheless, and hopefully things go just as well tomorrow as they have gone the last 2 days, this is a very good story, a very happy story, and the heroism here is nothing short of miraculous.
You know, Greg, when we get stories like this, one of the first things that jumped to my mind when I saw the initial headlines and the extensive rescue efforts, I was thinking about baby Jessica in the well. And I'm probably dating myself with that. This was a story that was, I believe, 10 or 11 days. I want to say it was the late 80s. It was a little girl down in Texas who had fallen down into a well, and she was about, I think it was like 2 or so. And it turned into this, this national... I don't know if obsession is the right term, but a seriously heavily covered story. It's one of the first big stories that CNN, which at that point was really kind of just this nascent, what's that channel? Who in the world would ever want to watch news 24 hours a day type channels? But they went round the clock with the story. And everybody, of course, everyone who's ever had a child, everyone who's ever known a child, it's the nightmare scenario. But thankfully, the child, baby Jessica wasn't dead. Now the question was how they would figure out some way to get down to this very narrow well to be able to rescue her. Thankfully, she was rescued, and my understanding is she grew up and had a nice, happy, normal life after that. And I wonder, this isn't the biggest and most consequential thing in the world. This doesn't affect thousands or millions of people. It's not this is an intensely human drama. And I go back and forth on whether it's good or bad when the news suddenly, becomes, remarkably focused on a story like this. And I actually think, the more I think about it, Greg, I think it is a good thing because, one, it gives us a break from the relentless, partisan, divisive, you're wrong, no, you're wrong. In this case, left, right, center, red, blue, all faiths, all creeds, everybody's hoping for these kids to get out of there. And I'm knocking on wood as I say this. As of this hour, it's looking, obviously, they got a bunch of the kids out, and I believe there's 4 and the coach. When all is said and done, hopefully everybody gets out safely, Greg. Then we can talk about whose idea was to do this, why they thought it was a good idea to go spelunking in these caves during the monsoon season. But thankfully, so far, it looks like things are going pretty well. I even saw, I think it was Elon Musk who was saying, we've got some stuff that we think could work. And it was kind of fascinating to watch far and wide all around the world. As soon as they heard about this story, people trying to figure out how can we help? What could we send? What could work there in what sounds like a significant survival and engineering challenge. So God bless everybody involved with this. So far, it looks like it's working. And I think it's nice for us to have these little breaths of fresh air, to realize that, no matter how intense the divisions get, we all love our kids and we all want to see them, kept safe. And so far, so good on this rescue operation on the other side of the world. Yeah,
we've seen this in other scenarios as well. I'm old enough to remember baby Jessica as well. I know there was the Q Creek mining crisis in Pennsylvania. There was the Chilean miners and those sorts of things. But you really do see everybody pulling together in these situations, and it's not something we get to talk about a lot on the political side. So it's good to see in this situation. And again, let's hope that everybody gets out safe again tomorrow. All right, let's move back to politics now, unfortunately, and let's move to our bad martini now, Jim. And they talk about a bad penny just keeps turning up. Well, is Hillary Clinton actually planning to run again in 2020? That's what some folks are talking about now. Here's Ed Morrissey on Hot Air, leading into a piece in the New York Post by Michael Goodwin. Could 2020 be a rerun of 2016, writes Ed. Michael Goodwin sees the portents for a rematch between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton thanks to her renewed interest in running her super PAC. She's sending out more missives attacking Trump, arranging payments to allied groups, and has even helped launch a campaign against whomever Trump nominates for the Supreme Court, run by longtime aide Brian Fallon. Quote, Hillary is up to something, Goodwin wrote yesterday, and he thinks it might just be a comeback in large part because of a lack of competition. Here's what Goodwin writes. First, there's no clear frontrunner for the nomination, 18 months into Trump's presidency. Clinton remains the closest thing to an incumbent. She's also got numerous advantages, from name recognition to campaign experience to an off-the-shelf cabinet that could give her a head start. Second, a crowded, diverse field diminishes the chances of anyone knocking her off. Third, looking ahead to 2020, she sees no reason to fear the favorite daughters and sons in key blue states like Kamala Harris in California, Cory Booker in New Jersey, and Andrew Cuomo in New York. And finally, money is not an issue. The donors might not be excited at first, but if she's the nominee, they'll be happy to support her because they hate Trump so much. So, Jim, in some ways, this grinds my gears because people are looking for a story here, perhaps where there isn't one, although she is getting more active. And secondly, if she actually is seriously considering this, I'm more scared for her than worried about the political ramifications.
All right, so I'm going to give you the really, well, I'm just going to say really bad martini. If you think Hillary would be very beatable in 2020, maybe you think of this as the good martini. At first, I was ready to say, oh, come on, this is just, trying to get clickbait. I don't know how much you can read into the fact that her super PAC has sent 5 emails out in a month. That doesn't seem like okay. She's still active in the political arena. She's talking a bit about the family separation issue at the southern border. Okay, fine. But I suddenly started thinking about it, and I realized, Greg, I have long held the belief that there's going to be a lot of Democrats running for president in 2020. It's interesting that he says the lack of competition. I think you're going to get a swarm of competition. But when you've got more than, let's say, 8, I think it starts to turn into a crowd in which everybody starts getting completely indistinguishable. Let's assume that Biden is out and Sanders is out. Warren seems likely. You mentioned some of the Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Terry McAuliffe has been making these kinds of noises. Martin O'Malley, Cuomo, Deval Patrick, who I think is very much an underestimated guy. A couple of House members, mayors like Eric Garcetti and Mitch Landrieu. We haven't gotten to the celebrity candidates. But then remember, it was a couple of days ago that Michael Avenatti, the former lawyer of Stormy Daniels, was saying, I'm going to run for president. Now, no one really thinks Democrats are going to nominate Michael Avenatti. Well, my suspicion is that every aspiring publicity hound is going to say, well, why not? Why shouldn't I run for president? Worst case scenario, I win the presidency. But more likely, worst case scenario, you don't get much attention. You do it, you get, your announcement will probably get coverage. Maybe you can argue about whether you should get a debate. You're going to get a lot of media interviews. We've seen this building on the Republican side for a while. The presidential campaigns have turned into really elaborate book tours. And my suspicion is you're going to see a lot of Democrats want to do this. So if you end up having 10, 15, 20 candidates out there, even if a bunch of them are only getting 1 or 2%, all of a sudden you don't need an overwhelming majority. All of a sudden having 33%, 40% might be a really sizable chunk of the Democratic primary electorate. And I think that's quite plausible for Hillary Clinton, because there's some people who are going to be like, oh, no, she was wrongly denied. This is one of the great injustices of all time. She deserves it. Now, obviously, there'll be a lot of Democrats who will say, no, she already lost to Trump. We've already done this. She's already run for president twice, fallen short twice. It's time to go in a new direction. But I think that, no, it's her turn. We need to correct this error of history. I think you can get 30%. I think you get 40%, maybe even approach 50%. And once you have that, when everybody else, it's Hillary's versus the swarm, I think she has a good chance of standing out and kind of people unifying behind her again. So I don't think it's completely unthinkable that she could end up winning the nomination again. I think you'd see a certain chunk of Democrats extraordinarily frustrated by it, but I would not rule out a scenario not all that different from what happened for the Republicans in 2016, in that the other 16 Republicans who weren't named Donald Trump all tended to blur together. They all beat each other up. They all took turns trying to be the anti-Trump. Folks like John Kasich never left the race, decided to run for president of Ohio, and you ended up with this cacophony, this noise, and that only somebody like Trump could break through with the noise. I think Hillary could benefit from a situation like that. So Depending on how you classify that, Greg, I think you could say it as good news or bad news. And who knows, maybe by 2020 she'll have learned to use a secure server.
Wonder how long her excuse will be for losing then. I mean, Comey and Electoral College and content farms in Macedonia. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. I think the American public's exhaustion with her is reached its peak. Do you really think Bernie not going to run? I know he'll be 79 come 2020, but given the enthusiasm he's created now, do you think he's likely to ride that or crown someone else to take his place?
I think he won't be king. He'll be kingmaker. You know, the idea that a lot of people will come, bend the knee, dive into vats of Ben and Jerry's, whatever they have to do to get the seal of approval from Bernie Sanders up in Vermont, and then attempt to do that. He could run himself, but I think there are enough folks in Democratic circles who'd be a little unnerved. The way to show that it's time to turn the page and move on from the 70-something president is to run the guy who's going to be an octogenarian on Inauguration Day.
Well, maybe you could make Jerry Brown his running mate, and then it would just lock up that older vote, which tends to trend Republican anyway. Jim, with all the recent news about data hacks and breaches, it's hard for us not to worry about digital privacy. But no matter what you do online, both your mobile carrier and your internet service provider track it all. Every website you visit, every email you send. It really is ridiculous. So that's why you can take back your privacy using ExpressVPN. These days, you don't want to use the internet without it.
ExpressVPN is the world's leading VPN provider that allows you to securely use the internet without being tracked by anyone. ExpressVPN keeps your online activity private and anonymous while you browse, email, download, or stream. ExpressVPN is great for streaming content. You can even use it to watch the World Cup without a cable subscription. How cool is that? Their easy-to-use app encrypts all of your internet data and hides your IP address, protecting your entire connection. ExpressVPN costs less than $7 a month and runs seamlessly in the background of your computer, phone, or tablet. And remember, every time you use the internet without ExpressVPN, you're putting your sensitive data at risk.
So take back your internet privacy today and find out also how you can get 3 months free. Go to expressvpn.com/martini. That's expressvpn.com/martini for 3 months free with a 1-year package. Visit expressvpn.com/martini to learn more. And with Bernie and Jerry Brown, I'm not sure they're all that internet savvy, but if you want to protect your internet privacy, that's certainly the way to go. Jim, the big news we're waiting for today, of course, is President Trump's nomination for a new Supreme Court justice. He promised us a number of days ago that would come today. It's going to be at 9 p.m. in prime time, I assume, from the White House. Right now, we're hearing a variety of different reports. Allegedly, 4 names are still in the mix: Amy Coney Barrett, Raymond Kethledge, Brett Kavanaugh, and Thomas Hardiman. Hardiman was kind of added to this mix later in recent days, and he was apparently the runner-up to Neil Gorsuch the last time around. But the way we're seeing reporting on this has me a little bit baffled and a little bit disgusted, and that's just due to the fact that only this morning I heard one radio report saying, oh, yeah, Brett Kavanaugh's looking like a real strong choice here. Saw written reports today, no, it's probably Barrett. Other one today, no, it's definitely going to be Kethledge. And then later, well, maybe not Kethledge. So, Jim, one of two things is happening here. Either the media is trying really hard and they just have no idea what's going on, or the president hasn't quite made his decision yet and has been saying really good things about all the different candidates. And so these sources are feeding conflicting information. So what are you thinking?
Yeah, this isn't really a crazy martini so much as a surprising martini. For all the flaws of this White House, and I think everyone would agree it's been a bumpy road at times. As of this, it's close to 12:40 on Monday afternoon. There is no leak so far. No, a lot of people. Oh, I hear it's leaning this way. Oh, I hear it's that way. The name has not leaked, assuming the decision has been reached. My understanding is that Trump does like to take his as much time as possible. He doesn't like to rush himself when making a big decision like this. It is kind of fascinating that we haven't seen this. The other thing is that also I don't think you've seen the conservative movement coalesce amongst any one of the 3, maybe 4 picks, depending on who you ask. And that's what I think. They're all really good judges, and so I don't think there's anyone where any of those options where any group of conservatives go out and say, boy, he really botched this one. No, they're all good judges. Today in the Morning Jolt, I kind of made the case about You look at the way Senate Democrats treated Amy Coney Barrett. By the way, spell check has been changing Coney Barrett to Comey Barrett for God knows how long, Greg. So first of all, I look like an idiot. That's problem number one. And it's spell check, by golly. The second problem is, if you have the name Comey, doesn't that kind of take you off Trump's list to begin with?
He will not be the choice.
We're one typo away from the Supreme Court history being completely changed. Thanks a lot, spell check. But anyway, you look at the way Senate Democrats treated this nominee just last September with Dianne Feinstein's "The dogma lives loudly within you." A lot of people said veered right up to the line of anti-Catholic bias, and some were saying, actually, no, jumped right over the line of that perception. Look, deep down, there's a bunch of progressives who don't trust devout Catholics. I think it's safe to say they don't trust devout Christians of any category. And it's not merely they're arguing, well, we just don't trust them to rule on the law and rule on the Constitution. We feel that their faith is going to they're theocrats. They're going to impose their religious views on everyone else and in their decision making. Most people don't find that to be a compelling argument against these judges, Greg. They've had distinguished careers so far. No one can point to a case where they ruled erroneously or wrongly because the Bible said X or something like that. I think in the end, look, a chunk of the progressive movement is just fundamentally hostile to organized religion, to Christianity, to the Catholic Church. And if you had a lapsed Catholic, a Christmas and Easter Catholic, maybe they'd let that slip through. But somebody who actually seems to be religious, well, we can't do that because then all of a sudden they turn, it's the Handmaid's Tale and stuff like that. I think Barrett is the one who will trigger the most furious overreaction from the left. But I think it's a clarifying reaction. I think in the end of it, some portion of the left is bigoted against Christians and bigoted against Catholics, and I think that's worth discussing. I think that's worth putting the spotlight on. I'm not happy about it for obvious reasons, but I think it's time to call it out and expose it and deal with it directly. Again, all good judges. I think we'll see how things shake out. Allah Pundit says that he thinks it's going to be Barrett simply because most people are saying she might have the toughest time for confirmation, which, he thinks Donald Trump hears that and basically hears, oh, you don't have the guts to try this. And of course, we all know, as he said, that's like a red flag in front of a bull. Trump's just going to charge right ahead in that. But anyway, we will know in a few hours. It'd be interesting to see if any rumors leak before then. But I think once that name gets mentioned, boy, oh boy, all of a sudden our political debate gets completely focused on one judge and a bunch of decisions, and it's going to be absolutely fascinating to watch in the coming weeks, Greg.
No, it absolutely is. And you're right about the religious test. Bernie Sanders made some headlines last year, I believe, in a confirmation hearing for the deputy budget director who had gone to Wheaton and had written something that obviously reflected the Christian perspective of Wheaton, and Bernie Sanders just found that completely appalling. So it's good to know that it's probably going to come from these four, though. We were joking in the office, Trump might just want Judge Reinhold or something.
Judge Wapner, if he hadn't passed away. We all heard the jokes about Judge Judy, his sister.
Yes.
Look, there have been a bunch of concerns about whether Trump would appoint the kind of justices that conservatives have wanted to see. So far, it's really been terrific. So far, the four names are pretty darn sterling. My guess is you'll see a lot of conservatives, a lot of smiles on their faces tomorrow, Greg.
No, I think we'll probably be two of them. But yeah, it gives the conservatives a lot of comfort knowing that it's going to come from the list, but it also gave the Democrats a lot of time to prepare too. So let the battle begin. We'll be talking about it tomorrow, I'm sure. Jim, catch you then.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Geraghty of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. And be sure to visit our friends over ExpressVPN to take back your internet privacy. ExpressVPN.com/Martini. And tune in again Tuesday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.